Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I would like to present our project results on enhancing biodiversity in intensively used agricultural land by sowing native seed mixtures. In intensively managed farmland in Germany, we face a continuous decline of species-rich habitats and plant species. The increase in field size has led to the loss of landscape structures. Remaining structures are often degraded, meaning small, species-poor or grass-dominated. In addition, a very effective weed control on arable land led to a strong decline of arable plants within the last 60 years, as Meyer and colleagues found in 2013. The continuing loss of habitats and plant species has consequences to insect diversity, as Seibold and colleagues demonstrated in 2019 for arthropod communities in grasslands and forests. The question is, how can we stop and reverse the ongoing biodiversity loss? Especially in intensive agriculture, we need to integrate measures to increase native biodiversity. And in doing so, the use of native wild plants is essential to reach a maximum benefit for insect species. Since 2016, we are pursuing this topic in several projects funded by the EU LIFE program and the Ministry of Environment, Agriculture and Energy of Saxony-Anhalt. Within these projects, we are investigating how sowing native wild plants affects vegetation development and benefits wild bee occurrence. Viticulture is one of the most intensive agricultural crops. This is why we choose the systems to enhance biodiversity. In the Saale-Unstrut wine region, we tested 72 native wild plant species for their ability to cope with vineyard conditions. For this purpose, we created 2 seed mixtures with 48 species each. In August 2016, we set up a block trial with 2 biodiversity variants, a conventionally sown variant, and an open interrow variant with 4 repetitions. Vegetation surveys were done on 8 square meter plots in summer 2020. Wild bees were sampled 5 times between April and August 2020 on 80-meter transects, walked for 8 minutes with an aerial net. Here are some results. Our analysis showed that plant species richness was significantly higher on biodiversity interrows than on conventionally vegetated and open interrows. In the 4th year after seeding, about 40 to 50% of the sown species were still present. Based on our results, we selected about 40 native wild plant species suitable for seeding in vineyards in the Saale-Unstrut wine region. On the biodiversity interrows, wild bee species richness was almost 3 times higher than on conventionally vegetated interrows dominated by grasses. We found a higher amount of red list and specialized wild bees in the biodiversity interrows due to the high variety of flower types in the biodiversity seed mix. In conclusion, interrows sown with a diverse seed mixture of native wild plants support more wild bee species than interrows sown with a species-poor grass clover seed mix. Our second example is about the agri-environmental scheme perennial wildflower strips, established on arable land. Saxony-Anhalt is the only federal state in Germany so far that allows exclusively wild seed from certified regional seed propagation in wildflower seed strip mixtures. Each of the 5 prescribed mixtures contains 30 forbs and no grasses. The cost of the seed mixture is about €500 per hectare, and the farmer gets a subsidy of €850 per hectare and year. The wildflower strip must be maintained for 5 years. It is a very popular agri-environmental scheme, and since 2015, about 4,000 hectares of perennial wildflower strips were established in Saxony-Anhalt. Our study area is spread across the whole federal state. We selected 40 sites from 272 flower strips established by farmers in 2015 and 16. In addition, we selected 20 cereal fields without wildflower strips with comparable conditions. They served as control sites. On these 60 sites, we carried out vegetation surveys in the summer of 2019. On a subset of 20 wildflower strips and 10 control cereal fields, we collected wild bees with an aerial net on 100-meter transects 5 times between April and August 2019. In addition, we surveyed bee-relevant landscape structures in the 1-kilometer radius of all study sites. Here are some results. On the wildflower strips, the mean plant species richness was about 10 times higher than on control sites, and forbs accounted in average for 76% of the total cover of all plant species. On the controls, forbs reached only 3% of the total plant cover, and the mean plant species richness was rather low. After 4 to 5 years of development, more than 60% of the sown 30 forbs were still present on the wildflower strips. A total of 125 wild bee species were found on the 20 wildflower strip sites, covering 30% of the species inventory of Saxony-Anhalt. On the control sites, only 11 bee species were found. On the wildflower strips, the average value is more than 20 times higher than on the controls. The high share of red list and specialized wild bee species reflects the high quality of the wildflower strips and the effectiveness of the species-rich seed mixtures containing a high variety of plant families relevant for bees. In summary, wild bee species greatly benefited from the establishment of the species-rich flower strips. Concerning the effect of wildflower strip characteristics and landscape context in the 1-kilometer radius of the study sites, we found very interesting results. Wild bee species richness in general was positively affected by the number of sown and spontaneously established forbs, as well as by the amount of bare soil on the wildflower strip sites. On the other hand, the cover of grasses negatively influenced the occurrence of all bees as well as of red list bee species. Wild bee species richness in general was not significantly influenced by landscape context, but the share of red list species was. For the latter, a high Shannon landscape diversity index and a large area of water body and wood structures in the 1-kilometer radius enhanced their occurrence on the wildflower strips. We concluded that in structure-rich landscapes, wildflower strips clearly benefit red-list wild bee species, and in simply structured landscapes, mostly common wild bee species profited from the perennial wildflower strips. Based on our results, we formulated 4 central messages. First, in intensively farmed areas, biodiversity can be significantly enhanced by sowing of native wild plants, as promoted, for example, by agro-environmental schemes. Second, we recommend the use of diverse seed mixtures with at least 30 wild plant species to attract a high variety of wild bees, including red-list and oligolectic bees. Third, in simply structured landscapes, a high number of common bee species profited from perennial wildflower strips, while in structurally rich landscapes, also many red-list species were supported by the wildflower strips. And fourth, in simply structured landscapes, we urgently need to promote and restore permanent footbridge structures, such as field margins and grasslands, to improve landscape connectivity. More information about our projects and publication can be found on our website. I want to thank you for your attention, and I am looking forward to your questions.